Here's a follow-up to the video I posted a couple weeks ago about the loss of confidence I had in the Vortex VIPER red dot sight for a handgun. If you haven't seen the video I'm referring to, at the very end of this one there'll probably be a link somewhere over here you can click on and it will take you to it so you can get the full context and see all the data that I collected before sending that sight back in. In a nutshell, to abbreviate it, there was a significant zero shift to the tune of 61 minutes of angle to the low right, about the 4 o'clock. For context, that is about as far as that dot has adjustments in it. I sent it back to Vortex. It only took about 2 weeks before I received the replacement in the mail. So I sent that sight back to Vortex with a nice little write-up. I'm going to capture here a little bit of the resolution we came to. It was a satisfactory resolution in my mind. Most importantly, now I understand why that sight had such a big shift in the zero. To take you on the journey a little bit, if you ever have to send something back to Vortex, you can just go straight to the little chat function on their website. It'll pop up. You can chat with somebody who will actually fill out the return form for you, so I think that's a nice little touch. I'd already found the return form on their website, downloaded it, filled it in myself, so all I needed was the return shipping label, of which they sent within a few minutes. So basically with that shipping label and that return form in the box, all I had to do is take and drop it off at the post office. I specified that I would prefer to send it via the U.S. Postal Service. Now for me, the post office is much more convenient as a drop-off location than running farther into town for a FedEx or UPS. So if you ask them, I am quite certain they probably have shipping accounts with those agencies as well. So whatever's convenient for you, you can probably work out as a return shipping label. Now as far as timeline goes, it took about 2 weeks from the time I initially contacted them, printed the shipping label, sent it to them, until I received the replacement via UPS. From where I'm located in Central Texas to their headquarters in Wisconsin, it took about 3 days for it to arrive. I did get a confirmation email once they received it in their shop, and then about a week or so later I received a phone call from one of their reps. I believe his name was Ryan, so shout out to Ryan. You have some pretty good interpersonal skills. The shop had determined that it was in perfect working order. They didn't see anything wrong with it, but as Ryan was on the phone with me getting some background to the issues I was having with the sight, I ran him through the history. I'd had shoulder surgery, so I was doing some rehearsals prior to shoulder surgery so that during my recovery period when I was in a sling, I would already be fine-tuned with my one-handed shooting skills, which also included a lot of racking of the slide or the optic off of the holster, belt, pants, things of that nature. Hence the cosmetic scuffing that he had noticed, the finish being worn off of the front of the sight. With that in mind, he got to looking a little bit closer at the front plate, and this is where we had the aha moment where Ryan, actually while we're on the phone, discovered what the issue was. Whereas the techs in the shop had discovered that the dot was indeed at the far right point of impact, what they had not noticed was that the glue around the front of the housing had started to peel off a little bit. That's when he had the aha moment and realized that the glass had actually shifted a little bit within the housing. Hence, where it had been zeroed to be dead on, it was now appearing to be zeroed way to the 4 o'clock. You can think of it as an issue of parallax of sorts, not parallax in the design of the sight. It's marketed as being virtually parallax free, which I think it is, but it was parallax in the aspect that that glass had shifted so much within the housing that where it had been zeroed previously, it was now presenting the dot way low and to the right. So in the end, I was very pleased that we had discovered what the issue was, why it had lost its zero so egregiously. It wasn't some of the internal machinations of the sight itself had gone cattywampus. It was that the glass had shifted in the housing, presenting kind of like a parallax type illusion, putting that dot where it shouldn't have been. And in the end, they did replace it with a brand new optic. However, it was not a VIPER RDS that they replaced it with. When I filled out that request for service form initially, I let them know that I had a loss of confidence with the VIPER red dot for my everyday carry routine, and I asked them if they could pretty please send me their newest optic, the Defender CCW, instead. And they obliged. Mucho gracias, senor. So just as I discussed in the previous video on this, before I incorporate this back into my everyday carry routine, I'm going to have to test it out for a couple of months, put a couple thousand rounds through it before I am confident that it will not have that deviation or any other issues. So this Defender CCW will get mounted on the same Glock 19 that the Viper came off of, and I will conduct what's called a pressure test. Now, I refer to it as a pressure test because I'm going to run it to the normal extreme. I'm not going to abuse it. I'm going to just run it to the normal extent that I run any other gun or optic system, meaning that I'm going to shoot it one-handed, two-handed from different positions. I may rack it against the holster, the belt, clothing, other objects, but I'm not doing it with the intention of breaking it. I'm just running it as I normally would train or run my gear out in the free range world. I differentiate that from what others refer to as a torture test because I'm not going to be repeatedly bashing it against cinder blocks, dropping it on its head, and then subjecting it to submersion in water. There are plenty of videos out there that have already done that when this first came to market. Those are pretty cool to watch, but that's not how I'm going to run this because in the end, the intent is that this will be mounted on the gun that I carry every single day. Once I'm confident that this Defender is going to hold up to the routine uses as I just described it and not fail me, then I will likely incorporate this back into my daily routine because as I'm getting a little bit older, my eyesight is not as sharp as it used to be. And I found that the red dot sight really helps, especially with those distant targets, because it's much easier for me, in my experience, to pick up that red dot than it is to focus on the front and rear sights of the handgun. I think that pretty much wraps up remarks complete on my end regarding the issue that I had with the Vortex VIPER red dot sight and the resolution that was come to with Vortex over that. I'm happy as long as this Defender holds up. If you haven't seen the original video, it's going to be right there. Click on that so you get greater context as to what the original issue presented as, and then be looking for the follow-up video for the results of the pressure test after 2,000 rounds through the Defender in the next couple of months. Until then, God bless you and stay safe.